That's the sound of me easing back in behind the microphone. And I'm so glad to be back. After, 3-4 weeks? Had a great summer with my kids. We had some sad news about 3 weeks ago. We had a death in the family, and we're just getting over that, getting back into the swing. So if you know me and have already given condolences, thank you so much, and thank you for continuing to listen. And I know that person would love for me to continue with the show full speed, all out, 100%. So let's get right to it. I have a little self-introduction here when I recorded this, and I'll leave that at that. And this is about an hour of me and Mr. Stark talking about teaching. Such good stuff. Test. Turn it up, y'all. Turn it up. Yo. Yeah, so I was talking about blah, 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 and then my blah, 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 blah. This is a test. Welcome, everybody, to my back deck. I'm about to take some notes. I'm about to write down some questions for Chris Stark. If you remember Chris Stark, he was one of the... Acorns are falling. Him and Brynne, I interviewed them about Brynnes Bread and their lifestyle and all that stuff. And Chris has been gracious enough to come on over to my place, and he's going to chill on my back deck with me. So you may hear a dog bark or a kid or something in the background. It is 7:23 p.m. The children are downstairs with their grandmother for a sleepover. And I'm getting some levels, all kind of good stuff here on our show. I know, right?
Head up at 34.
34. All right, man, get up on that mic.
All right.
Love it.
I love you.
You can move it over a little bit. I got to get you to 12 dBs like where I'm at.
All right. How's that?
That's perfect.
That's beautiful?
Yeah. All right. Chris Stark is here. Chris Stark teaches...
Middle school science.
Oh, goodness. Specifically,
Yes.
what subjects?
Oh, geez, man. It's everything. Biology, chemistry, earth science.
Is that wrapped up in one class? Or just whatever needs...
It's 2 years. I teach 6th and 7th grade. Yeah, so it's with the new next generation science standards, it's pretty spread out.
I just gave Chris a pen.
It's a nice one, too.
It's green, just like your shirt. Look at that.
Teachers love nice pens.
We do. I have... Anecdote. I have, not this one, but another one. It's specific pens that I buy from Japan on Amazon.
Yeah.
My kids be stealing them all the time. They're like, can I use your pen? Use your pen? I'm like, no. These are $3 a piece from Japan. And for some reason, they respect that. Like, oh, okay, yeah.
I put string on pens and attach them to washers.
That's a good idea.
So the kids look like fools if they're walking around with those.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Or they just cut the string, I guess. But
Have you heard of teachers taking shoes for pencils?
oh, God, they used to do that when I was in school, man. I was one of those things like, why would you want to touch a kid's foot? It's disgusting. I teach middle school boys, man. They're gross.
No,
So are the girls.
you said it. All right, man. Let's get into this article. I'm going to link these on the description of the episode. The first one we're going to get into. Now, I chose these because they're kind of different, right? So this first one is just like, let's all be like Norway or wherever that is.
Yeah, Norway.
Norway,
Finland. It's a
Finland,
Norway
wherever.
thing.
And the second one is about. Oh, let me tell you that. Let me tell my listeners the names of them. The Absurd Structure of High School by Brynne of Brynnes. That's a medium piece that I'll share. Quick read, but interesting enough. Something that actually Chris and I have talked about. Chris, you remember last time you were on with Brynne, I talked about, I don't think we talked about on tape, but I talked about language and math.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in here. I think that's where it got in my brain. I didn't think of anything first, of course. The next one is Defense of the Lecture, which I have a lot to say about this one. I'm the history teacher here, so there's something to say about that. I can go on for a long time about this one. That one's by Miya Tokumitsu. So, all right, let's get into the absurd structure of high school. I'll give a quick rundown, and Chris and I are going to talk about what's great about this article and what's absolutely ridiculous, because I got a couple of absolutely ridiculous things, but also a lot of great things. So the guy starts off with describing a schedule of an adult. At 8 a.m., you arrive to work. Immediately, you're busy with a quick problem needing to be solved. You get to it. Blah, 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 blah. Just before 9, you have to stop again, move to a new office, do something totally different. You have to write now. Now it's 11 a.m. You break for half-hour lunch. Then you go to the lab. Then you have to do a lab and do, at this hour, you, again, change rooms, change focus, change. Each of these hour-long periods leaves you with work to do outside the office. 4 or 5 math. Okay, so by this time,
you understand
you figure out where he's going.
The parallel to it is definitely pretty obvious.
Right, and then he stops and he picks it all up. Where does he say? Overlapping. Oh, this one's pretty good, though. He nailed it on this. You do this every day. On weekends, you often have work that wasn't finished during the week. The managers who oversee you in various hourly commitments don't really communicate with each other. Yeah. Each treats their task as the number one priority of your life, not merely for that hour, but for the day. Dude, that's me.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Of course. My subject's more important than your subject.
Right.
That's always the way it's going to be.
Overlapping activity is ignored. Then he goes on to talk about how this work schedule is. High school. Would you agree with this?
Oh, yeah. In middle school, too. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a frenzied pace. I think we were talking about that before. How it's absolutely insane how we expect kids to have the optimal learning environment when we are shuffling them from class to class to class. And then on top of it, you got to include, you've got, a random assembly here, or you've got another activity there. You've got the fire department coming in here. And by the end of the day, how much time on learning do you really honestly have? I mean, your boss still wants to see, the do now at the very start of the class, and that takes 5 minutes. And plus the kids need to come in late from the nurse and
gym class.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was in gym. Yeah. Well, you were in gym. I can smell you.
Over the formaldehyde.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it too. And I was thinking, man, and we complain about their attention spans.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's almost like they're a fly stuck in a room. I mean, they're buzzing all over the place.
Right, because they're probably going to leave the next time. Another thing that about this, and I tell the kids this all the time, is they have to play a different game in each room with the teachers.
Yeah, they need to learn how to play the game.
So, and the best is when like I had, we kind of have cohorts where I get the same, I'm going to say, 60 to 70 kids that go to the same English teacher.
Oh,
and they're all like in the same like level or whatever, and that also most likely coincides with the same math teacher.
Yeah,
one of two of them. And so I had this one class that was always going to their math class next, and they were all like talking about how they're gonna. They would literally plan to piss off that teacher, and they would just. I'd have to like stop talking bad about teachers. Stop. I'm here.
Yeah.
Then I always say to try to give something. You guys talk about me like that when I'm not around? Oh no!
Oh, no! Not during your class. Before your class, yes. Yeah, no, it is true. The kids learn how to play their cards in each classroom. I mean, they know that for me, and they know that for you. And that's what we do with our bosses. All right, I mean, every time. But it is. Just reading the article, it's definitely. It's nice to see that it's recognized that we are pushing onto our kids what we think is important in our society.
But something we would never do ourselves.
Oh, of course not. Well, we wouldn't, but other people do, right? I mean, we live a different life as teachers. But, I mean, I know people who are working 60, 70 hours, and that's a low week for them.
Yeah.
And they're living in that frenzied pace to make the bank in order to go on the vacation or to do this or to do that. And that pressure gets pushed onto their kids.
Yep. But at the same time, they're sitting in one room all day, or one big office.
True.
Doing the exact same thing every day.
Yes. So at least they have focused task at mind. Yeah,
and they see results every day, probably.
Which is a lovely thing. Yeah.
I do not see results.
No.
No physical results. Maybe some abstract and personal results.
No.
But my brother's a salesman, and he gets numbers every day.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a return on your investment.
Pause for crack. Isn't this Coca-Cola amazing?
It's fantastic.
I'm going with diet today.
Can you use a brand name on a...
Call me. But this is Coca-Cola. Adult Coca-Cola. All right. So the guy goes on to talk about the biggest issues students and teachers faces, time, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
This guy is a teacher? Yes.
Yeah, I believe he is.
He says it, 20 kids come into my class every hour. Okay. And then he says something that's not very revolutionary at all. The problem, as I see it, is that we are married to a system that has not been properly reevaluated for 21st century capabilities and capacities. I'm like, bro, 20th century.
I was going to say, yeah, we need to rewind 100 years because it's been screwed up since then.
Yep. And then he talks about how the high school curriculum is mirrored by the university, or the university is mirrored by the high school. Compartmentalized fields of knowledge further broken down into highly specialized and narrow branches. Physics.
Yep.
Biology. All that. And then at the university level, one spends most of the time studying something specific, and then a 2-year exploration period at this, with a possible 2-year exploration period at the start, right? I remember when I took my first 300 level history class.
Yep.
It was like colonial history, 3-something. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. And I finished 4 years. I remember my senior year, I took like 12 credits. It was like chilling. It was so easy.
Oh, senior year was amazing.
Did you choose your major that fast?
I was an engineering major.
Oh,
yeah. So I was in a totally different world.
Oh, yeah. With a heavy emphasis both on practical application and a specific future and individual ambition, right? That's the university.
Yeah.
And which the high school is, I would say, failing miserably at this.
Oh, they're not paralleling each other at all. I
No.
mean, not in any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, unless you were to go to a technical high school, or if you were to go to maybe a specific charter school or something like that catered
Prep
to.
school.
Yeah, prep school. Yeah, but no, I mean your general high school here, no, not at all. You're a squirrel let loose in the building. I mean, that's basically what it is.
And you have to be in places
Yeah,
at certain times.
I need to be here and I need to do this. It's robotic, right?
I had a colleague that used to talk about how it didn't seem much different from jail. You
in
had
a
to
way.
be a certain place at a certain time.
Yep.
And then he would say, except people in jail get 30 minutes for lunch.
Not 22.
Not 22. All right, so he keeps going. The result is a mess. I'm skipping around at some places that I thought was important.
Are you at the solution there, page 7?
The solution to him is too easy. I like a solution. Do you like a solution?
I do, yeah.
Talk about it.
I do. I mean, but I mean, other schools are doing trimesters and things like that. I mean, some schools do have a better system, although I've talked to teachers. Quabbin has a trimester, and some teachers despise it, you know. But I don't know if those are teachers who just don't have that idea of practicing for multiple hours on end. Like 3 or 4 hours with the same kids can be intimidating, right? Technical high schools, they have those kids all day, sometimes for a week at a time. So they see them the full school day for the entire school day. I mean, and for the entire week. I think that's beneficial. You know, I really do. But it depends. I mean, a middle school kid's a lot different than a high school kid, and a freshman high school kid is a hell of a lot different than a junior or senior high school kid, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I like the solution, but I think it's something that's already happening in some schools to a certain degree. Says, 2 long classes each day for 6 to 8 weeks. It's kind of like a trimester, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a cool idea. I would love it personally.
How would you tackle it as far as structure of the class or curriculum goes?
So many of and it's funny because the other article
Teaching
we're going to
science.
talk about is lecture, right?
Yeah.
So many of my projects, so many of my classes are so project oriented. Like we're going to accomplish this, and to get there, we need to do 10 different things to get there, right? We did a project at the end of the year, which implemented using technology, creating videos, and I'll explain more of it later too, which actually might help lend to this. But that could have been done in such a shorter window of time, because when the kids come in, you've got 35, 40 minutes of real, focused energy, because so much of that's lost coming in, explaining, here's what you're going to do. If I did that once and now we had 4 hours, oh, God, I mean, the things that could be accomplished.
Yep.
So for me, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I know other teachers, they would tweak if you said, you've got 4 hours with these kids. That wouldn't sit well with some teachers. And if you said you had the whole day with these kids, woo, right?
What would be your cap on the number?
For a number, you can't have more than 20.
No,
You
no.
know, you can't. And I know this
I'm sure it
article
was more
starts
than
off with
12.
Yeah, seriously, right? I mean, but I mean, I was able to do the last project we did, which was very hands-on, very detailed. I was able to do that with classes of 28. You know, I mean, it's doable if you're willing to bite the bullet.
Mm-hmm. So this guy says, come to school in the morning, intensely study a single subject.
Yeah.
Ancient history, Shakespeare plays, cell biology, specific math concept, and so on. Man, you could really unpack that. These are just like ideas that came into his head while he was writing. But specific math concept for half a day? Like, what are you talking about, man?
What age are you talking about?
Right,
That's
what
the
age
big
talking
thing.
about?
I mean, high school seniors in an honors class,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Math,
Little
one
bit
math
of
concept, doable.
Some calculus.
Yeah, you know, but
Ancient histories, that's easy enough. I mean, you could do a whole, Shakespeare. So, okay, let's get here. This is my favorite part right here. This solution does not address the problem of choice, right? They wouldn't have much of a choice on what they would be doing, but I think that would happen within each subject area. So if I'm taking kids for a 6-week term of early U.S. history, that choice, I would build that choice into the course and curriculum itself. Yeah. Rather than, ask all them all that or put it into the schedule, so to speak. This is my favorite part right here. I want to know what this guy teaches.
English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a
he must
ELA
be amazing.
teacher.
Students could write for 2 hours in class, then share their essay and revise, all in 1 or 2 days.
I mean, he's got to be a very good teacher, right?
They could spend 3 hours reading a few chapters of a book while I have the time and energy to meet individually with each student.
It's a beautiful idea.
I do. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah,
And you know what? I've had some success with reading like that. My last school, they built into it, like in the homeroom advisory, they would built in something like silent sustained reading. Yeah. And so the kids already had that built into them, that this was their opportunity to do that. But 3 hours pushing it.
And then once again, it's age, it's the level that the kids are at. I mean, you got to remember, you're going to have ELL kids in that room, and it's a totally different beast. I mean, that's the hardest part, is that this is the ideal situation, I think, that he's talking about. Then you got to consider scheduling. I mean, you're talking a scheduling nightmare when it comes to how do you set this up with your typical middle school or high school that has 400 kids, 1,000 kids, or 5,000 kids in it.
Go to Texas and schedule this. Those big high schools.
Those massive high schools. Yeah, I mean, go to Lowell. Go to Lowell, Mass. I mean, there's 10,000 kids at Lowell High.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane, you know?
Wow.
Don't quote me on that. We can look it up. It's insane, the thought of trying to schedule it all. It's a beautiful idea, but you need to have leadership, which, no offense to any of the principals out there, but it's hard. There's not that kind of leadership right now in the schools. That's a big undertaking. When you're flipping to, it's a paradigm shift. You're flipping the norm. Yeah. Which is awesome. I think it needs to happen. We've talked about this before.
And he's right in the fact that it's not set up for the whole thing is based on the factory system. Yeah. You get the 2019 model, and all of these models of students can do this math, read this way, and right there, and that's the cutoff. Yeah. So, I mean, but you could take this and even go on to ask questions about, like, why do we even have grades? Not ABC, but like 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. And then, it's funny. And then I started thinking about that, and I always think, well, then we can go back to the one-room schoolhouse. Go all the way back around. Yep. Because then you get more of a community sense with that, too. But I've been going with that for a while. But 3 hours reading, that's a lot. Depending on where you're at.
It depends, and it depends on the book, and it depends on how you approach it, too, right? I mean, silent, sustained reading for 3 hours for a 12 or 13-year-old, no, not in today's day and age, especially.
I would say for an 11th grader.
For an 11th grader, too. Same thing, yeah.
I mean, I can't get him to watch a movie for an hour.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, though. I mean, that's the truth.
This is a movie. What is...
Yeah. I mean, when we were kids, that was like...
the cart came in, baby.
That was the day.
Yes.
Oh, my God. This is awesome.
We have to take notes.
Yeah. No, it's... it's very different now. I mean, once again, the kids are very squirrely. They're
The students, this is why they're squirrely, Christopher Stark. The students would be undistracted by the pressure of all those other classes, all those other teachers, all those other subjects every day. Because that's the only thing going on in their lives.
yeah. Good luck.
That's what's distracting them, the other classes.
The gender next to him doesn't matter. Not at all. Oh my God, no. And it's once again, it's an ideological situation. I think he's talking about. It's great. It's a bit of a rant, but I agree. The whole idea that we're putting our kids into a frenzied pace is real.
Yeah.
I mean, it is real, and it's why do we have 12-year-olds with high anxiety? You know, I don't. You know,
We refuse to acknowledge that it might actually be the school's fault
Oh.
or the system's fault. Put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, why is this kid worried about coming into the classroom? Why is it certain teachers he or she feels comfortable being around? And there's a lot of things that have changed a lot. Where when we went to school, 80s and 90s was you go to school,
Right.
Like there's no question. You don't get the chance to leave the classroom because you're feeling anxious.
Right.
So things have changed a lot, and we have to. It's not that we have to cater to that, but I do believe we've created the monster. Right?
Had a part in it, yep.
Yeah. And so maybe it is a good idea for us to start looking at some significant changes.
I think a lot of people are leaning on schools. This is just my observation, my own experiences, but people are leaning on schools for, like when you're, back in the day when your parents said you go to school, if your teacher doesn't like you, that's life.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because you knew that back home, everybody, you're all set. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain that, but I've got a lot of kids in my classroom that my classroom is their safe area, rather than at home. And then we put them through this rigmarole of short lunch, these crazy classes. They're worried about the next teacher, so on, and the next gender, and their cell phones, blah, blah, blah. So they got that stress. There's no release valve for that stress.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being a kid now.
Oh, I can't either. Oh, because it doesn't stop.
Never
I mean,
stops.
We could get into all the technological stuff, but it
Right.
doesn't stop at school. It doesn't stop in the classroom. Right. It amps up when they leave.
So maybe something like this would give them that respite.
I mean, I think we need to stick them out into the woods and take their shoes off and let them run around free for a little bit, personally. But
Take a few laps around school.
seriously, ground them.
I remember how tired I was at school all the time because of sports.
Yeah.
I was just like, I've played sport every season.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh my God, it's a chair. I'm just so excited to sit in this chair.
Oh, it's the bus. I can sleep on my way home.
Oh, so what time was your high school? Did your high school begin? Was you a kid?
Was it 7 o'clock? I think it was
7:05,
7:05,
I used to
something
be
like
so
that.
tired all the time. I remember sleeping in the shower.
But my bus ride was 45 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a big school, district area, New York. But I got to say though, no matter which way you slice it, it was different then. It was different in the 90s. It's changed dramatically for these kids. And like you said, it's all those other stressors. Maybe we need to change the way the school system is approaching education.
This one, you almost had to change the buildings at this point with this stuff.
Yeah.
You have to tear down all the buildings.
You're right.
Change how that even looks.
Yeah.
Well, even now, so I have this big room. I just got confirmed for this. I traveled at first, and with big schools, it happens a lot with the newer teachers. But I just got this huge room, and it's about the size of this house from there to there. And it's really high ceilings. It doesn't look like a classroom. All the other classes got the drop ceiling tiles. It feels like a classroom.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't. It's got like rafters.
What?
It's like back near the gym and the arts, near the stage and all this other stuff. Right? I'm just kind of tucked in the corner. But, I mean, at first you're like, that doesn't feel right. But my plan now is to turn into something like this guy's got going so I can break up some of the learning. So, can I draw you a thing?
I'm all about pictures.
I'll post this on the website. So, I've got it big enough where I could put probably about 20 desks. I'll just do a frame of that, and then I'll finish it later. And then my desk is up here in the front, and the board's behind my desk.
Yep.
Fellow teacher knows the layout.
Oh, yes.
The door's over here. It's a double door.
The U.
Well, this won't be a U. This will be all filled in.
Oh, you got. But do you have only 20 kids in the class?
Our district does. I can't have more than 25.
Okay.
So, and depending on the class. So, what I plan to do is get at least about 20 here. I'll get to that reason in a second. I've already got 6 really big tables that I used last year that sit about 6 each. And I'm going to put those on the outside. So, I've also got another board back here. So, what I want to do is I want to make the places of the room where the kids are doing different things in the room. It's like a science room, essentially, right? So the labs are over there, and this is over there. So this would be the part where you listen to me talk, because I'm the smartest person in the room. We'll get to that next. And then these tables will be reserved for kids who don't need to, who are better at paying attention during that time.
Okay.
10 minutes, right? And then I would put some kids, and I've done this before with like primary source reading, you know, like let's read the Gettysburg Address. And some kids, you just say, hey, can you read the Gettysburg Address and take notes and answer these questions? And you go over there. That's what
of course.
Go over there.
Yeah, you're differentiating to the best degree.
And so that differentiation is going to come into each spot of the classroom.
Yeah.
What sucks about that, teachers swear, that's what I say.
Oh, poopy.
What sucks about that is, though, when you only got 45, 55 minutes, it's just that space doesn't really flesh out. You can't.
No.
You can't feel that space all the time.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because what'll happen is, let's take Gettysburg Address. What'll happen is I'll lecture for 10, 20 minutes. This is Abraham Lincoln, right? That's where you're going to start in the 9th graders.
Yep.
This funny looking man is Abraham Lincoln. People killed each other, blah, 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 blah. And then you'd move on to either reading it or reading somebody's account of it, so on and so forth. And then you get the kids over here. I was even thinking of putting this space over here with these 2 tables, moving those 2 tables and just putting like lounging areas.
Okay. Yep.
Which again, 55 minutes. It's like, meh.
You can't optimize it. You can't use the space to the best degree.
And then maybe these kids could work in pairs or groups by themselves.
Yep.
And then I would work with specific kids in this space.
Yeah, and more of an intervention space.
Right. And so I'd either keep all these spaces the same or be able to rotate them. And so much of it, and I need to do this year, I wasn't able to last year, is signage in the room, you know.
Yep.
Rules here. So, but when I read this, is kind of what got me here, this article about not only the time can be used more efficiently, especially in my case because my room's so big, the space can be used. Yeah. And when kids have specific spaces, they know how they're supposed to be learning in that space.
Yes.
And I think with a few hours. And so that anxiety that hits me when I read this at first, I subside it with something like this. I say, oh, yeah, well, I guess I could space that out. And, you know, they just have to get used to it.
But could you imagine a 2-hour class?
I do have a 2-hour. How long is that? I have in the middle of the day, there's a double block.
Okay.
How long is that thing? Oh, gosh, I can't remember.
But like,
it's from 11:40. My lunch is 11:15. So from 11:40 to 1.
But you have lunch there in between that.
No. I have a lunch from 11. Some people do have lunch in between it. It's a rotating lunch.
Gotcha.
And I have the first lunch because I'm in that part of the building.
Yeah.
So I have a lunch from 11:15 to 11:37 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then from then to 12:30. No, to 1. I have a class.
Nice.
So that's the kind of things I do during that class. And I even build in, and I think if anybody were in that position, you build in 5-10 minutes of do whatever you want.
Yeah. No.
Take a break.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what we need. And that's the thing. But the problem is that's one class, and that's a rotating class, right? Who falls into that block.
Yeah, I see it. You know, I'll see the A during that day.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the best one. It's the prep period.
Well, of course. But it's like if we had that for every class and we were guaranteed that every day and consistently.
And then we get that prep.
Yeah.
That continuous prep. I'm always interrupted. I'm like, oh, geez, I got to hurry up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think there's so much more value. It slows things down. It takes away that frantic pace because by the end of the day, I feel frazzled. You know, it's a lot. You got 6 classes coming into your room in a day. Sometimes some teachers have 7 classes coming into their room. I mean, that's mayhem. by the end of the day, it's a short day. I mean, you start at, middle school, we start at 8 and we end at 3. So that's a short day for 7 classes to be filtering in and out of your room. Fixing it, man, though, that's the problem. Like, this guy's got a good idea, but it's nothing new. It's not groundbreaking.
Yeah, and block scheduling is the first step.
Well, yeah.
They do it at the high school here in town. That's how. Hey, button in, lost battery, going to reboot and lose the subject, but hey, it's fun.
I got you.
All right, we're back. My recorder ran out of battery. Now we're plugged in. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again.
It's just the second time. Fool me once, shame on you, recorder.
I was talking about cell biologies and a bibliography. If I had sent my students on a bibliography about cell biology, they may all get a different picture of what a cell looks like in their brains.
Yep.
Whereas with the lecture, they're going to get your picture of a cell that's in their brains.
Yes.
And so that's a base you can work off of.
Sure.
That's just straight information giving. And in so many ways, you got to give it so basic.
Yeah.
So that you can work off of it and keep going. All right. So then she talks about arguments, and then she makes it a social occasion. This one's weird to me because it's kind of like, this is the world we live in. Oh, well. It's kind of as if it would fix it.
Yeah.
For example, establishing a course's rhythm. The weekly lecture or pair of lectures draws students together at the same time of place, same set of ideas.
I found that interesting. Yeah.
Smaller
social parable.
Right. So smaller discussion sections. Classrooms are communities, and typically lectures are the only occasion for the entire group to convene physically. She's describing church.
To a degree, yeah. It sounds, and she mentions church in here.
That people aren't, by the numbers, aren't doing as much of. Remove the impetus to gather, either by insinuating that recorded lectures are just as effective. Not true. Take it from me, because Crash Course, you ever watch Crash Course?
Oh, love Crash Course. Yeah.
Love it. But at the same time, I've had kids tell me they hate it and they would rather hear from me.
Seriously?
Yes. Not that I'm better, but
Yeah.
just like they crave that that personal.
I mean, that's lecture. It's
Yeah.
just video lecture with the Green Brothers. I mean, that's the difference.
And they talk really fast.
They
I have to slow it down.
Yeah, they do.
They don't breathe is what it is.
Yeah.
It's that whole YouTube thing where you're just like, are these people going to breathe in, or are we just going to...
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, and they're doing cut after cut after cut in order to get to that point.
Right.
Well, I mean, I use TEDx too, right?
Oh, yeah.
TED Talks and stuff like that. Those are all lectures. I mean, when you ultimately look at it,
And they're well done.
they're very well done.
Refining arguments, modeling argumentation,
Because
displaying
they're good
erudition.
lecturers,
Right.
But they're not interacting with the audience per se.
Nope.
You are the audience at
Yep.
that point.
Yep. Insinuating recorded lectures are just as effective, or by making the lecture optional. And the benefits, if all that happens, the benefits of community disappear. My notes here say, especially in the age of Snapchat, there is no sense of community with the children.
There's no sense of community
At all.
in general these days, it seems.
And then she goes on to talk about how this is going to cure depression and anxiety.
Totally disagree with that, but that's nice and all. But no, I mean, I agree that the lecture's not dead. It will never die. It's been around for thousands of years. I mean, it's not like it's not a new thing, and it's not going to die overnight. We need to use it appropriately in the classroom.
I did not I didn't take teacher education courses. So for example, my history degree, master's in history is just in history.
So you don't have any pedagogy?
I got a little bit here and there.
Okay.
That extracurricular, so to speak. You take class here, take class there. I got the purple thing.
Oh, purple.
Purple.
I did purple too.
Yeah, did you?
I'm a purple program person.
I love purple.
Yeah.
For listeners, that's just essentially a binder. You did a binder?
Oh God, yeah.
Love the binder. I did it all.
Yeah.
I didn't do it all in one day. I put it together in one day.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like a portfolio. Hey, by the way, I can do this job, and you give it to them, and they give you your initial, quote unquote, here in Massachusetts, your initial licensure.
Yes.
And they take your money.
And a lot of it.
So, I'm wondering, I was going to ask you, I don't know if you know or not, are there any, like, I've never encountered any PD and this is how you talk in front of a class.
Never.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, no, I'm going to disagree. In the district that I work in, I will not name it, we have had PD on how to talk to our students by a person who should have not been talking to that's impressive, any
I'm balancing the
any
can.
humans at all. It blew my mind that
That's
we were
always
being
interesting.
told how to talk to students by someone
Was
who
it how
had
to lecture or how to interact?
It was how to interact.
Okay.
It wasn't really how to lecture, but it was as close as we're going to get to how to lecture students by someone who I couldn't believe that they were able to even talk to us. It was mind-blowing.
That's always
Yeah,
fun.
it was great PD. Really impressive.
I would, not to be too full of myself, but I could probably give a 1 or 2 hour PD, interactive or not, on how to do a good lecture.
Oh, totally.
And how to use the technology for it. For example, we talked a little bit about the kids not using, in your class, not using slides or PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I've 1 year, 2 years, I had them do one of those at the beginning of the year. I said, I want you to do slides on your topic, right? And guess what they did? This is 8th grade. They read me slides.
Yeah.
And I gave them grades. At the end of the year, after a lot of practice and direction, the last project I said, not the last project, but the last time I did slides, I said, you're going to do slides, but you're not allowed to have any words on your slide.
Yep.
And they were like shocked at first. And then some of them were like, okay, I'll have index cards or whatever. But on PowerPoint and Google Slides, there's a place for you to write down what you need to say right underneath. And you just got to put it in the right presenter mode.
Yeah.
I said, if you want to redo that. I said, when you go get a job, that's all you got to do.
No, and that's it.
And then you'll eventually get good enough and know your stuff enough, like I obviously do, when you're teaching for 10 years, that you just riff after that.
It's when they put stuff on a slide and they read it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're reading verbatim almost. And I tell them, guys, I'm not,
Just write
I'm
an
not
essay
stupid.
at that point. Right.
I can read that. I don't need you to read it to me. So what's the point of you being up there?
Right.
And it's the same thing with any adult.
Yep.
I mean, we've all had adults do this.
Yep.
Like, we're going to read you these 55 slides about this. And you say to yourself, what are you thinking?
I could have read this before we got here.
Exactly.
This meeting could have been an email.
And exactly it. Principals do it. Upper administration does it. It's a remarkable thing when you get somebody, and especially a kid, who knows how to talk to the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have just a picture up there, and they're looking right at the audience. And I've had kids. I've had 13-year-olds who have been able to do that, and that's good teaching. That's a lecture. They are lecturing.
Good public speaking, too.
Good public speaking. And this, I don't know her name here. Mia, she makes a great point talking about, well, we need to know what lecturing is because this is what politicians do.
Yep.
And if we want knowledgeable, capable citizens,
she says politicians, ministers, and
what was it?
it's the basis of dialogue.
Yes, exactly.
Being able to listen.
Being able to listen and being able to decipher what your feelings are on the subject.
Right.
And it's done in a group, which I think is also very important because we have, as much as we're like, well, I got 10,000 friends. It's like, those aren't real friends.
Mm-hmm.
We are no longer, not everybody's sitting down at church at the same time. Not everybody is, with their core community anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is good. I think it's important to have that experience, like you were saying earlier, that kind of carnal knowledge and understanding from the wise man, in the group.
And it's funny because public school may be the only place some kids see people from their neighborhood.
Yeah.
You might see them outside, but all their friends are online.
Yeah.
I got a friend from Sweden I play Fortnite with.
It's right. Seriously.
Where were we going with that? Oh, slides, words. I had a good professor in grad school. Well, I was his TA, and so he was teaching a 100-level American history course. It was just every slide was a picture.
Yeah.
And so he was in charge of choosing the good pictures.
Yep.
And then he would say all the things, and you were just on your own for notes,
Yeah. Yep.
When you make kids do that too, it makes them choose the right pictures.
Oh, 100%.
To be able to talk about this.
That project I was talking about, we were doing at the end of the year. We created this. A friend of mine had mentioned to me this thing called March Mammal Madness, which I was like, all right, we'll join in. It'll be fun. It's about mammals and all this stuff. So, all right, we'll talk about it. It'll do some science. I wasn't impressed. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. It was goofy, childish, and had zero science basis in it at all. I told my students, hey, guys, we could do a better job at this. We could make our own. Let's create one ourselves. And so that started like a lecture talking about what makes something interesting on social media, because this was all based on social media. And we created this game called Invertebrate Insanity, right? And the way that I had the students communicate their information is through a literally just an auditory. They spoke into the microphone, and they had images in the background to kind of show it and to drag the reader in. I said that you guys got to make it interesting. You got to make it clear. It is almost like, in a sense, lecture, you know, that you're giving them about the giant dung beetle or something ridiculous like that. But it's so important for the kids to be knowledgeable about the thing that they're talking about. And it's the same thing for teachers. A lecture becomes boring when the teacher either is too knowledgeable and they don't know how to speak to the audience, or they're not knowledgeable enough and they're trying to just put the information out there. At that point, just hand out a worksheet, it seems, you know.
I get to a point sometimes where I try to find different ways to get them, because there's the skill of listening, and there's the skill of like keeping on track. And so I have a library full of good old fill in the blank notes, right?
Yeah.
Where my slides are all set up. And so sometimes it becomes, what was the last blank? What was the last blank? What was the last blank?
100%. You're not listening to the notes. You're not
at that
listening
point.
to what
So
I'm explaining.
I continue to struggle with how do I get them? I've done, what was one of them? I learned it somewhere. It was write down whatever's in red.
Oh, I've done that.
Summarize whatever's in blue and ignore everything. Not ignore, but don't read. I'm in charge of what's in black. One thing that I've done, I'm getting on a trail here, but when it comes to either lectures or videos, I learned this at a conference. 3 columns. It's what you see or hear. What you think about it, and then either I think it's questions for the questions, and that's it. And then I give them numbers. I'll say you have to do 8, 6, and 4, and that's really good for videos or even some lectures. But every kid's different in how they want to show that they listened, so to speak. But let's keep going here. All right, so and then she goes on to talk about them showing up to places. 2 lectures will help them get and be normal.
Yep.
Like a metronome, lectures regularly punctuate the week, grounding other elements of students' lives by encouraging regular sleep schedules and study periods, which can also reduce anxiety and stress, right? Because apparently in university these days, people aren't coming to class and then they fall behind and so on and so forth.
Which I've heard too,
I mean, when I was at UMass, the undergrads had to come to class. That was a part of their grade.
And when I went to school too, same thing. I went to the state school, same deal.
Audiences, I like this point. Audiences outside academia clearly understand the benefits of collective listening. If it didn't, public lectures would be gone. Museums, bookstores, community centers, they still have them. People still go to it. So you're training kids for that kind of community and civic participation as well. And then this last part about how if you don't look busy, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, that was the same thing of this. The previous article we talked about was that same thing.
Yeah.
That if you're not creating product, you are not doing work. It's that
and
idea.
you are not useful in our capitalistic society.
Exactly. And so lecturing doesn't look like that, right? It does look like more of, the
passive.
Exactly. And it looks like the wise person speaking to the crowd, and let's think about that. Let's mull this over. Where it's really not that. I mean, you're supposed to be getting everybody engaged. I mean, ultimately, which is tough. right? I mean, it's tough, especially at a grade school level, talking middle school, high school, whatever. It is tough to get the kids fully engaged when you do a lecture. I think mainly because other teachers aren't doing them as much.
Or as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It's definitely, it's one of my strong, I've said this to administrators. This is one of my strong points as a teacher.
Yeah.
I did improvisational comedy in college. So being funny on the spot is nothing new to me.
Yeah.
And movement and all that, just being on stage, so to speak, or public speaking. And so when teachers aren't doing it well, it hurts everybody else.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Well, come and watch. You might want to be there. And I found that I've taught a big range. The kids in the lower poverty bracket like it more than the kids aren't, because the kids in the higher income brackets, lower income brackets, the kids in the higher income brackets, middle class, they know that they can learn this somewhere else. Yeah. They know that they can, and they know how to get there. Whether that's help from their parents or the fact that they have the hardware in the house. Mm-hmm. I've got kids that don't have the hardware. They've got a $100 cell phone from Walmart, and they can use Snapchat with pretty well, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So they have the hardware, they have the know-how, they have the motivation to learn all the things I'm telling them anyway.
Yeah.
But when I pop up at some slides up there, and this is the only place, I mean, kids don't have books in the house, nothing like that, and it's the only place they're going to learn that, they tend to gravitate towards that a little more. Mm-hmm. And then when I give them the product or the primary source and secondary source to build on that knowledge, they do a lot better with it.
I could see that. I honestly could. I mean, it's weird because
it blew me away when I first figured it out.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because kids today, you're right. I mean, they have every answer they could ever imagine at their fingertips.
But they don't know it.
They don't know that.
And they don't know how it.
And they don't know how to use it appropriately, of course, because they're kids.
Right.
But at the same time, like, it is remarkable sometimes, like, a student will bring something up to me.
Yeah.
A 12 or 13-year-old will say something, and I'll be like, wow, how do you even know that? It's like, oh, you watched a YouTube video.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a flip.
Yeah. You watched, Veritasium or something like that. Right. And it's really cool and all. So it does, in a way, diminish the lecture a bit. But at the same time, it's amazing how much information you can, dispel upon the kids in a short period of time and engage them and then ask them new questions.
Yep.
That's the fun part. Right?
Have you ever had a student repeat something that you said that you wanted them to learn?
I've had emails from parents.
I always jump for joy whenever
totally,
kind of sarcastically.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
I was like, where'd you said that?
Yeah.
Oh, you go, my life has purpose.
Dude, I've had emails from parents saying like, just had to tell you, little Tommy came home today and he was spouting off all this information, and it's like, that wasn't in notes, that wasn't in a lab, that was me just
wasn't
talking
on the
to
screen,
the class.
right?
And then the amazing part is that's what they're absorbing, and so if you're a crabby son of a gun that day, that's what they're absorbing too.
Yep. Right?
As much as we look at them like little machines that are trying to feed the cogs, they're really not, No, I do feel that it's a super important skill for all teachers to have.
The problem is the word lecture.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
You get lectures from your parents about how bad you are.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds awful.
So I lectured him for an hour about his choices.
I caught him doing this.
So she's going to keep going. And what the secret of this is, I don't know if you know this, I got this from Jacobin Magazine.
Okay.
Which is borderline anarchist.
Really?
Yes. It's like socialist, lefty, left.
Well, I kept seeing the neoliberal.
Yeah, she keeps saying, right. Yeah, you ever see neoliberalism? That's like,
I was like,
lefty code for.
What is he sending me here? What am I reading? Am I going to get arrested?
Isn't that so interesting, though?
Yeah.
That some super lefty is telling us about how important lectures are.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's interesting.
she'll go on and talk about how in our constant scramble to project adaptable employability.
Yeah.
We must always seem harried, even if our flailing about isn't directed towards anything concrete.
But dude, isn't that people love that
In the classroom,
they love that
when your principal comes in, what do they want to see?
yeah
What's the word? Engagement.
yeah
What the heck are you talking about? The constant scramble to project I could reword it, to project adaptable engagement
yeah.
or learning styles or whatever.
But people like to seem harried. They'd like to seem, oh, I'm so stressed out. There's so much going on. It's almost like it's a badge that people wear. I am so stressed. I'm so busy. You have no clue.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
Get the kids moving around.
Yeah.
Stations.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I mean, that's what we would have done with our 4 hours in the morning, for sure.
Yep.
But
Yep.
there's a balance to that. And principals don't always have to see harried work. I mean,
Yeah.
I did it. My principal loved it. What did I do? Oh, I had them write arguments on pieces of paper, and I literally put them on scales to see which. I borrowed scales from the science department and see which arguments held more weight, right? Just the physicality, and it was great. And so the balance is how much they learn with something like that, the physicality of it, or how much will they learn if there's me telling them a story about this and that. I don't know. So yeah, this lefty left keeps going about. This last part is so great. Indeed, under capitalism, anything that doesn't immediately appear as productive, even if only in the most superficial way, is dismissed as a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
It's the truth.
It's not wrong. The kids are just sitting there listening. That's a waste of time.
I tell you, man, my
Is it?
friend started working up in Royalston at, I don't even know the name of the school now, but all I know is that it turned into her wearing no shoes and walking around in the grass with the kids, looking at nature and taking in things. It is the epitome of what education is not in our country right now, right? Because the only harried they're going to have is a harried woodpecker, you know? So it's, no, I think both these articles do a nice job talking about two of the significant issues we have, or really honestly boil it down to one significant issue. It's that feeling of we need to be stressed, and that stress is
Moving quickly.
Yeah, it's killing everything. It kills the vibe. You know, it takes the fun out of actually teaching.
That's true. I mean, I would let's put them together with 2 subjects a day, 3 or 4 hours. What do you got? Maybe at most 50 kids total.
Yeah.
You're like the 3rd, 4th most important adult in their life at that point.
Yeah.
Because they see you for so long a day.
Yeah.
I've done the math. It's very close to how much I'll see. What did I do the math? Oh, okay. So my old school, we had advisory, and I'd see them at the beginning of the day and for 30, 45 minutes in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And then, like, we had one really long one on Wednesdays or something. I did the math, and I saw those kids like 80% as much as I saw my own kids.
Yeah.
It was like 40-some hours a week I saw my own kids, and like 35 I saw them.
Yeah.
And when I learned that, I was like, oh, my gosh. But think about 3 or 4 hours a day for that short of time. It's kind of like summer camp.
Yeah.
A couple weeks.
Well, and there's so much more collaborative work you can do. I mean, you're not an isolated machine at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You could work with the ELA teachers. You could work with the science teachers. There's just so much more. You know?
And when you do stand up and lecture for maybe even 30 minutes or 45,
class isn't gone.
and class isn't gone, and you've built that trust already.
Yeah.
So that when you go out and hunt and look for food, so to speak, in education, that they're going to trust whatever you have to say. Because last time you did it, they taught us so much. We looked at the cell. We all remember that. And so now we know that the next time is going to be just as interesting, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes, totally. Well, and that's like the whole idea of setting it up and knocking it down. It's harder and harder to do that because there's all these extraneous circumstances you have to deal with as an educator as is. But then on top of that, you've only got, I mean, once again, let's boil it down. I have a 55-minute class. The truth is, it's only 45 minutes long, you know, by the end of it. And so, like, if you spent 30 minutes lecturing, what are you going to do if there's other 15 that are productive? If you had those 2 hours, if you had those 3 hours, you could spend 30 minutes explaining, lecturing, getting them excited about some subject matter that you're going to discuss, and then you just smack it down. You're like, here it is. Now we're going to do this. Did you guys know we're going to extract cells from this? Now we're going to look at those cells we just talked about. Instead of saying, and tomorrow, after you take your math midterm, and then after this,
you're right.
I'll see you guys on Friday. But no, I won't see you Friday because Friday's a day.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. So I'll see you next Wednesday. And it's like, by the end of it, they come back in. They're like, what were we doing again?
Yeah.
What's what blank do I need to fill in for, it feels fake. It feels fake. It feels like we're just feeding them. They're not even digesting it all, but they're still pooping it out, man.
They would lose less stuff.
They would.
They
would.
2 classes
Seriously, yeah. If you had 4 hours...
Wouldn't even need to do homework.
Oh, to hell with homework. That's another discussion altogether. Well, and that's brought up in both these articles. It's that idea that, you're going to be taking homework today because we didn't get enough done because the system's broke and it's your fault, kid. So now you got to go home and make up the difference for the system's faults. I don't agree with that,
They would you could keep all their stuff in the room.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot
They
of
would remember what happened yesterday.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sold.
Oh, I am too. But it's now selling it to the schedule, and that's the hardest part. I do love the idea that, for me, project-based especially, I do so many projects with the kids. I love the idea that you have them for such a chunk of time that the productivity, I'm certain, would be immense compared to what it currently is. Because you get the kids just in the swing of things, and the period's about to end, and...
Yeah, clean up, set it all back up.
Yeah. It set it all up. It's like setting up the pins again, and here comes the next class. Great, so we can get nowhere.
Yeah. I imagine it, for me, it would be setting them all up with lecture. And then, so I'll give you an example. One of the things I always try to teach, especially in like ancient pre-medieval history, is the interconnectedness in Asia beforehand. A person could go, this is hard to explain to people, but a person could go from, not Baghdad, what was it called before that? Babylon. No, it was Baghdad. A person could go from Baghdad to India with no trouble. Like you say that, people are just like, oh, whatever, like it's thousands of miles. And so I would set all that up, talk about Silk Road, talk about the things that were traded, talk about religions. You set all that up, but I have this project about this guy. It's a story in Arabian Nights, 40,000 Thieves in Arabian Nights that's in there. But this dude, Abu Hassan, Google him right now. This guy, he lives in Baghdad, and he's getting married, and he's sitting on the dais with all his people, and his father's giving a toast. And then he gets up and gives a toast, and he sits down. And right before he sits down, this is the story. He lets out the loudest fart anybody's ever heard. And I play a reading of it, and the guy that reads it on the YouTubes, he makes the sound, and it lasts like 10 seconds. It's so awkward. So anyway, he's so embarrassed he leaves, and he gets on the story goes, he left and went to India, right? And so that's where my point comes together in that primary source, where this guy is able to just go to India. So then I bust out a map. Yeah. I say, how's he going to get to India? Well, there's some mountains there. And it's just, so that all, I can't do it. So I have to, and so what I eventually do is I have them map out a route to India.
Yeah.
Talk about how maybe some of the routes he got there. And then the story goes on. He goes to India and becomes like the mayor of some town for like 20 or 30 years. And he comes back. And it's actually like a joke story where he's like hiding outside his wife's house, and his kid is asking. He knows it's his kid, but they don't know he's there. She says, "Who's my father?" He said, "Your father's Abu Hassan. He farted 10 years ago. You haven't seen him since." He's like, he runs away and goes home. So we look at a map, and I have them write a letter back from India. Yeah. And they have to touch on geography, religion, economics, blah, 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 blah.
Nice.
I could do that one day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Whereas that usually takes me a week.
Yeah. disjointed, it takes a week.
Right.
Yeah. There's so much value in it's like, for the people pushing for project-based learning, then they better damn well
That's
push
right.
for long class periods.
That's right.
You know, and at the same token, like I said, we got to have a little bit of a lecture at the beginning. You got to engage the kids, you know. And it's not some lectern. It's not a person, like you said, sitting up there and this was this and this was that, and that's the end of the story, you know.
But you're right. If you're going to ask me, what you said before, okay, after your midterm and after the rally and after then you got to work all yourself all the way back to this kind of thinking about this specific thing.
Let's pretend that after a week you still give a crap about the things that I've talked about a week ago, right?
And that all these things didn't happen at home or on your phone in between.
Exactly. I'm the most important, don't forget.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
As
I'm
said
Mr. Stark.
Lecturing is increasingly impugned as an inactive and hierarchical pedagogical method.
That's a big sentence.
That's a lot of big words. That, you know what? Look at that. Each one, almost every word in there's got 8 letters or more.
That's impressive.
The type of labor demanded in the lecture hall and the type of community it builds still matters. This is the best part. This is so lefty. I love it. Under an economic system that works to accelerate and divide us, institutions that carve out time and space to facilitate collectivity and reflection are needed more than ever.
Vive la revolution. That's awesome.
It reminds me of, I read one about...
Do you see what she's the author of?
Yeah.
Do What You Love and Other Lies About Success and Happiness.
Yes.
Sounds definitely not like a beach read.
Good stuff. What else you got planned for this coming school year? After reading this article, anything spur you on to?
Yeah, right. It gets me super excited.
Sorry about that.
No, dude. No.
Sorry to make you think about work. Halfway through. We're halfway through. Are you halfway through? I started on the 26th.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
It's halfway through right now,
we got another
actually.
month.
Yeah.
Very excited still. Another month is amazing. Got a month off. I mean, no, I got some big plans for this school year. We're doing that thing again, the invertebrate insanity, which is pretty cool. It came out really neat, and we're hoping to spread it out nationally this year, which would be pretty cool. You have to check out my website. Just Google Mr. Stark. But I got plans for the students this year to get more involved in some of the makerspace stuff. Even though I'm a science teacher, I love getting the technology piece worked into it. I got a 3D printer I'll be bringing into the classroom and a couple other things just for us to start discussing some of the aspects of science that I haven't been able to get too deep into in the past. It's tough to think about any of that stuff in July. I'm not going to lie to you.
What have you got in between?
What do I have?
A mountain bike trip.
Yeah, I'm doing a mountain biking trip. We're doing some bike packing, me and a buddy of mine. Just made my bike bags for that. We're going to do a 3-day, 125-mile deal of mountain biking, which should be pretty cool. We're going to try to start something here in Central Mass because there's no bike packing, which is it's a pretty new-ish activity of almost like backpacking, but taking your mountain bike for the ride. Should be pretty cool. So we're trying to hopefully find some routes that we can get more people interested in, bring a little awareness to the awesome trails we have here in the area. But yeah, I mean, for school-wise, I don't have too many plans for getting things set up. I'm building a set of trails for my daughter's school, so that's school-based. So that way she can get out on the trails, learning a little bit more about geology and nature. A co-worker of mine, we do some different trips during the school year to kind of get kids excited about the geology of Massachusetts because it's extraordinarily diverse. We go out, there's dinosaur tracks out in Holyoke. I don't know if you've ever been there. Very, very cool. Mount Tom is volcanically rich. It's got some pretty cool stuff.
Really?
Volcanic tufts and cool stuff like that.
Igneous.
Ingenious.
Shut up, history teacher.
Igneous rock. Indigenous igneous.
They're really smart.
It's really smart, and it's local. This rock is indigenous to this area because it's a rock and it can't move. I don't know, man. We every year I try to start off a new project. Last year we did invisible ink with my students, which was pretty fun. Kids got to light some stuff on fire. which, hey, how can you go wrong? Start off the year with that. We ended the year of blowing rockets up and everything in between. But, I do want to incorporate a couple different ideas I've had this year. I do the standards-based grading that we talked about.
We could do a whole episode on that.
What's that?
We could do a whole episode on that.
Oh, without a doubt.
I got a colleague that does it.
I tell you, and it worked brilliantly this year. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it that I changed the second year that I ran it. I still abolished doing homework, except for if kids can't finish stuff in the classroom. I have them finish it at home. Typically, it's because the kid was slacking. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Right.
But giving kids extra opportunities, some teachers hated that, hated it. They hated the idea of like, well, you're going to give them another chance to take this? I said, yeah. If the kid cares enough, I'm going to let them try it, see what they do.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of positive feedback this year, which we could talk a lot about at another point.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. We'll wrap it up here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I wish I had a saying at the end.
You need to have a saying at the end.
Don't.
You had that saying over there.
Don't do too many drugs.
Don't stick your fingers in electrical outlets either while doing drugs.
I had a saying when I worked at campus, don't die.
Don't die.
That's rule number one. Don't die, we'll send you home.
Yep. I like that.
Or in class, sometimes they'll say, I'll kill you to another student. I'll say, there's no killing. We'll send you both home. They like that one. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back. Chris Stark.
Happy to be here.
Doing
man.
God's work. Teaching.
Amen.